which our new party chair, Governor Cecily Barida, will read on behalf of the coalition members.
Thank you. Yesterday, Raila led us battalion of hooligans, thieves and looters in breaking mayhem upon sections of the city of Nairobi and a few other towns, mostly Nyanza. Under the pretext of peaceful protests and demonstration, Mr. Odinga coordinated and oversaw violent confrontation, looting and destruction on a vast scale, preventing people from going to work, stopping education and other public services, and paralyzing business operations. The destruction, loss and damage arising from Mr. Odinga's chaotic activities will surely run into tens of billions of shillings. Mr. Odinga has indeed indicted himself as an economic terrorist and saboteur, a serial hypocritical liar and failed leader, whose insatiable greed for power through any means necessary, including the shedding of blood of Kenyans, is unmatched. The hypocrisy lies and failure. The lies. It is evident that Mr. Odinga's peaceful demonstration, quotes, were neither peaceful nor were they demonstrations. Instead, they degenerated into looting sprees, orgies of mindless destruction, running battles with law enforcement officers, and intimidation and terrorism of other Kenyans to stop them from carrying on their work and life. Lie number 2. The principal reasons offered by Mr. Odinga for organizing and implementing anarchy on such a tremendous scale are the cost of living and the 2022 election, which claims was stolen. Yet as recently as June 2022, Mr. Odinga was the government's foremost defender, attributing the rising cost of living to factors beyond the government's control, which also affected other countries. As regards the election, Mr. Odinga did not invest half as much effort and seriousness into his campaign as he did in defending the Jubilee government, or as he has done in organizing and supervising large-scale economic sabotage throughout the country. Moreover, Mr. Odinga's so-called peaceful demonstrations were a transparently disingenuous campaign of large-scale urban banditry and nothing else. No petition was delivered to any government office as promised. There was no march or delegation to State House as promised. Not unless Mr. Odinga lost his bearing and searched for State House or Harambee House in Nairobi's Mathare and sections of Eastlands. These orgies of mindless chaos were conducted on the basis of a blatant lie. Hypocrisy. It is obvious that Mr. Odinga's actions have nothing to do with the reasons he has given, and everything to do with his well-known post-election routine, whereby he uses the threat of post-election sabotage and mass action to extort power-sharing arrangements with the government of the day. It is also a continuation of Mr. Odinga's propensity for violent attempts at capturing power, which began in 1982. It is a demonstration of Mr. Odinga's contempt for democracy and the rule of law, constitutionalism, as well as peace. Times are indeed hard, and Kenyans are trying their best to get through. Anyone making life so much more unbearable through selfishly motivated political violence is unlikely to be viewed with much understanding. Moreover, as demonstrated, Mr. Odinga's arguments about the cost of living contradict his earlier position and are unsupported by the fact of prevailing market prices. His agitation has to do with subsidies that were allocated under the pretext of cushioning Kenyans from high prices, which in fact were embezzled by Azimio hardship regime leadership in one of the country's most scandalous states. The failure. Mr. Odinga's criminal escapades are desperate futilities. he does not enjoy the support of the entire Azimio constituency or Kenyans in general. There were no demonstrations or protests in counties of the Central, Rift Valley, Western, Eastern, Northeastern, and Coast region. Ultimately, only Kisumu bore the brunt of the criminality aside from goons mobilized by ODM MPs to terrorize poor mama bogas. There were no demos in Sekuru, Eshogo, or even Daragwa, where some of the Azimio leaders come from. It is quite evident that some regions require to emancipate from the Odinga yoke and slavery of being used as pawns for self-preservation of a single individual's thirst for power. So questions to Mr. Odinga are the following. Besides Mr. Odinga's reasons and actions beg the question, how does a disruptive campaign of looting and violent mayhem address the cost of living? Why actually didn't he demonstrate before the election when Unga was costing 230 shillings? But now he's demonstrating when it has come down to 170. That is hypocrisy. How does subjecting hard-working Kenyans to hardship and causing enormous losses to traders and businesses improve the cost of living? When Odinga and his Azimio party left government at the end of the hardship, the cost of a packet of unga was between 230 and 240. It is now ranging between 170 to 200. Isn't it basic arithmetic that the prices are coming down? The Handshake Brothers and Holy Alliance. To Mr. Odinga and Mr. Kenyatta, we have one message for you. When in a hole, stop digging. We are only beginning to get to grips with the insane magnitude of embezzlement, looting, murder, abuse of office, and sheer impunity that took place during the 5 years of the hardship regime. As we do so, we begin to understand your desperate resolve to sabotage all accountability and Kenyans' return to physical sanity, financial stability, accountability in governance, and economic health. You will fail. The violence, chaos, looting, and destruction are also aimed at distracting the country from investigating the shameless siphoning of public funds, crimes against humanity perpetrated through extrajudicial killings and forced disappearances, abuse of office, and state capture that enable large-scale corruption and impunity committed by Mr. Odinga's Kwanza and co-conspirator and handshake co-principal Uhuru Kenyatta. This will fail and the truth will be known. Police action commendable. To the Kenya Police, we salute you for having quickly come of age and for rising to the occasion. The President's action to restore fiscal autonomy to the service is paying the anticipated dividends of efficiency and professionalism. We commend you for doing your best to keep Kenyans and their livelihood safe and secure. We urge you to enforce the law firmly and bring all perpetrators of the criminal mayhem committed at Mr. Odinga's behest to account. They must be charged for every stone thrown, property looted, goods destroyed, and persons injured, no matter who they may be. It is also time to raise the bar and make Azimio and ODM fully accountable for the injury, loss, and damage occasioned by the rioters staggering they mobilized on the pretext of constitutionally protected demonstration. We urge a reckoning of the damages and the speedy accountability in conjunction with the registrar of political parties. Finally, it is time to confront a ridiculous predicament that has remained unresolved for a very long time. The government must determine once and for all if Mr. Odinga is above the law. If he is above the law, there is no further purpose in asking anyone else to obey the law. If, on the other hand, the government determines that Mr. Odinga is not above the law, it must activate all appropriate mechanisms to bring him to accountability without further delay, because justice must be done. That time is now or never. Thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah, I think the leadership and the
I go first?
yes.
Okay. I join the rest of my colleagues in saying three quick things about yesterday's unfortunate events in the country. Number one, I wish to commend the restraint of the Kenya Kwanza supporters. I know many of them watched with utter shock and dismay as their lives were unnecessarily interrupted. They could not go about their businesses, their children could not go to school, and many other duties that they could not go about because of the incessant, ugly behavior of ODM goons that they reign terror in this city and few parts of the country. I have seen messages from many of them to these leaders that are behind me here, asking them, up to when shall we allow these people to continue to blackmail us and stop our day routines with reckless abandon? I wish to plead with them that kindly allow the government of the day time as we sort this issue for once and for all. Never again shall Kenyans continue to live under Mr. Odinga's blackmail, for which he is rewarded after every election. This administration has said this is the final time, this shall never happen again. Secondly, I wish to join the rest of my colleagues in celebrating our police officers who, despite a lot of provocation from ODM goons, you saw police officers innocently standing in stifling hot sun, being hunted like dogs by ODM mandarins, but they kept their calm, they never shot anybody, they peacefully dispersed the crowds. We want to tell our police officers that is what we expect. The only challenge that we want to give to the police is that those looters that are publicly known, those that have been captured on cameras, breaking up meetings, stoning people's vehicles, going into business premises, we want to see them arrested and arrested right now. The leaders that have been accompanying them into these demonstrations, they also need to be arrested and brought to book. But we celebrate the good work of our police officers. We know you're working under very difficult circumstances. It was not difficult for you to shoot some of the people that were clearly provoking you, but you kept your calm and you maintained peace and order and protected people's property. We celebrate you as our police officers. That is what we expect of you. We hope that we shall continue to hold firm despite all that intimidation and threats that is coming from the Azimio side. Lastly, is to the great people of Nyanza. We celebrate you also because you largely remained peaceful, save for a few goons that were hired by Odinga through his ODM MPs. Many of you kept your calm, you went about your business, you are sending messages and pleading for help, saying even you in Nyanza, you are tired of this blackmail. And let nobody lie to you that the only way through which you can get development is through a handshake via Mr. Odinga. That is a lie. We give you an assurance that President William Ruto is a fair man. Every region of this country will enjoy the fruits of development with or without Mr. Odinga. In any case, we have come to learn that he only uses you to ascend to power, but when he gets there, there is nothing to show for it. Take an example of the time during which the handshake regime was in power. There is nothing of substance that can be pointed out in Nyanza and shown that they gained this by being under the handshake government. In fact, many of the projects that were put there, Mr. Odinga ended up looting those projects. An example is the Soin Koru Dam, where close to R1 billion shillings was paid to the contractor. But if you go back to that project on the boundary of Kericho and Kisumu, there is nothing to show for it. Mr. Odinga disappeared with that particular money. Therefore, let them not lie to you that the only way you can get development is by picketing and throwing stones so that he forces his way into government. All he is looking for is an opportunity for him and his family to loot this country. Do not allow him. Keep calm and know that you are part of Kenya. You will enjoy every right like every other citizen of this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me also join my colleagues first in condemning the massive looting that witnessed yesterday, orchestrated by Mr. Odinga, the Lord of Violence, and sponsored by his principal sponsor, former President Uhuru Kenyatta. And I also want to confirm that indeed many leaders here and many others who are not here are under immense pressure from their constituents. Kenyans, peace-loving Kenyans asking government, if government is not able to take care of the situation, pressuring leaders that the public be allowed to protect their lives, businesses, and their property. And as we commend the police for the very good work that they did yesterday, we want to ask them today that they must hold people to account for the anarchy yesterday, for the massive looting of property and destruction of property, and nobody should be a sacred cow. When his president said that the Constitution is a Constitution of the Republic and everybody is under that Constitution and the laws of the Republic, including the president himself, Mr. Odinga and Mr. Kenyatta are no exception. They must submit themselves to the whims of our Constitution and our laws and abide by them. And I want to encourage the Inspector General of Police, fear nobody. Don't just arrest the young boys and the young girls who are being paid to demonstrate. If the buck stops at the door of Mr. Odinga, go for Mr. Odinga. If the buck stops at his sponsor's door, go for them. Failure to which, then you leave Kenyans to protect themselves and to protect their property. And we do not in any way desire that that time comes to pass in our lifetime, where Kenyans will take it upon themselves to protect themselves and their property. Aware that that is what Mr. Odinga and his sponsor want, so that the country can degenerate into chaos. For Mr. Odinga to find an avenue swimming in the blood of innocent Kenyans to get an opportunity at another stab of getting closer to political power. We want to remind Mr. Odinga he had the time under the handshake regime, he had the means, he had the system he always thought, he had the deep state, but instead of using the deep state and the means and the system he had to ensure that he campaigned and won over the hearts and the minds of the Kenyan people, he spent his time in government enabling, facilitating, and enjoying the loot that came out of the handshake regime, especially in the last 6-7 months of that regime. We also are aware their principal motivation in orchestrating this chaos is to intimidate government, to stall the investigations that they are aware are ongoing on the massive extrajudicial killings that are crimes against humanity. And we want to remind Mr. Kenyatta, it's barely 6 years or 5 years since he was acquitted of crimes against humanity by the ICC. The crimes perpetuated under his watch by DCI Kinoti and the SSU unit, I know is a great motivation for him and his handshake party to want to orchestrate chaos to preempt these investigations. The massive looting of our economy through the Tonkom saga, the road sector that we mentioned last week, the maize and fuel subsidies, the COVID-19 cancer billionaires, they know and they are aware that investigations are on high gear, and therefore they want to preempt all these investigations. But as we have said, they will fail, and the truth very soon shall be known on who are the beneficiaries of the telecom haste, the cancer COVID billionaires haste, or the road sector haste, where, as we mentioned last week, roads were being contracted. Foreign contractors were being contracted to build roads with no procurement being done, and at costs that you cannot imagine. That people can be contracted to build a gravel road at a price of 40 million shillings a kilometer with no due process. These are the things Mr. Odinga and Mr. Kenyatta are afraid of. But we want to reinforce what the president has stated earlier. However, we have said what Mr. Odinga is doing is only equivalent to what bandits in parts of North Rift and Northern Kenya are doing to the lives of innocent Kenyans. What they are doing is banditry with cattle rustling. Mr. Odinga is involved in a scheme of urban banditry, and he must be held to account. It is political and urban banditry and economic terrorism, which cannot be a solution to the high cost of living. And that's why we ask Mr. Odinga and Mr. Kenyatta, how will destroying property and destroying the economy help to bring down the cost of living? And we must tell you, Mr. Kenyatta, Mr. Odinga, the cost of living is where it is because you too took it there. You looted this economy dry. The subsidies you are demanding that they be reinstated were your schemes to loot from the people of Kenya. And we want to be categorical that those subsidies will not come back. And they will not come back because the government has a plan in place. That is why we have said, only this morning, I have bought a packet of Jogo maize flour from neighbors here in town at 191 shillings. The same packet of Jogo was retailing at 230, 240 shillings only in June last year when Mr. Odinga and Mr. Kenyatta were in charge. And not just in charge of the government, that they superintended at that time. Therefore, the pretend they are leading Kenyans in a protest against the high cost of living is just a smoke screen. And we want to tell Mr. Odinga, even your own demonstrations are a failure. And that is why we have appealed to our brothers and sisters in Nyanza. Please, don't fall into the same trap of enslavement that Mr. Odinga has enslaved in you over the years. It is rather unfortunate that a young entrepreneur from Nyanza, the proprietor of Pitstop in Kisumu, had to lose his business yesterday, courtesy of the anarchy orchestrated by Mr. Odinga. It is a pity, and that is why we have asked the Registrar of Political Parties that she must, and the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties must hold ODM as a political party to account for the massive destruction of property at the UDA offices in Kisumu. And our Secretary General is here, he will confirm the level of damages that were incurred by our party. And since ODM as a political party enjoys funds from the political party's fund, the Secretary General is writing to the ORPP to ensure that she withholds money going to ODM to cater for the damages occasioned to our offices and property, including motor vehicles that were parked in that property.
Rangi vizuri ofisi yetu, tumeregesha furniture ambayo ilikuwa pale na usajili ya members wetu iendelee vile tulikuwa tunafanya wiki iliyopita. Jambo la pili, jana mliona Raila Odinga kwanza alituambia kwamba anapeleka petition kule kwenye Ikulu, na vile nilikuwa nafuatilia vyombo vya habari asubuhi nikamuona ako pale Serena, nikadhania ako katika barabara ya kwenda Ikulu. Ile advice ningependa kupatia Raila na watu yake ni kwamba next time ukiunda maandamano, buy enough bundles, kwa sababu Google Map yenu iliwapoteza ikawapeleka kule Isilia, Madare kule chini. Ikulu iko karibu na Serena. Kama ulikuwa unataka kweli kuleta petition pale Ikulu, basi ungetembea 1 kilometer pale upeleke petition yako. So next Monday tafadhali usizunguke. Ikulu iko pale karibu na Serena. Wewe amuka asubuhi, uje pale Ikulu, utapata wakina Chebioto wamekuja pale kwa gate. Na akina Ali Mohamed, na akina Osoro, na akina ama utume ujumbe kwa WhatsApp wako kama unaogopa kufika Ikulu. Lakini mwisho tunasema kwamba maneno, we only have 2 responses to it. One, wewe enda fungua server ya ODM nominations kwanza. umeibia watu kura wakati wa nomination, haujaifungua sava. Uliibia wamama kura katika nominations ya Kisumu, ukapatia dada yako certificate. Ukaibia watu kule Siaya nominations za ODM, ukapatia ndugu yako certificate. Ukakuja hata sava ya nominations za watu kwenda Yala haujafungua, uliweka mtoto wako kwenda pale Yala. So kabla utuitishe maneno ya servers, enda fungua sava ya ODM kwanza. Jambo la pili, kwa maneno ya sava, sisi tunajua vizuri sana rais hana kifunguo ya sava. Rais sio mwenye kufungua sava. Mulikuwa katika Supreme Court, mkaambiwa, mkataka orders za kwenda scrutinize zile kura ambazo zilipigwa, na mlipewa hiyo nyadhifa na Supreme Court, na hakuna kitu ambayo ilifanyika. Sisi tunasema Raila, IEBC itatengenezwa, IEBC mpya kutumia sheria ile ambayo wewe na Uhuru Kenyatta mlitumia mkaweka Cherera na wale wengine watatu. Hiyo sheria hatujabadilisha. Tutatumia hiyo sheria kuleta wale IEBC commissioners wageni, na kama uko unataka kwamba wewe ndio uteue wale commissioners, basi leta sheria katika bunge hii au wabunge wajadili, tutajua kama itapita ama itapita. But in the meantime, we want to tell you, we are going to observe and follow the rule of law. Our constitution stipulates how we are going to get our IEBC commissioners, and we are not going to amend the law to favor you, Raila Odinga.
Thank you. Wacha David Ochieng aseme. You know, there are few brave leaders from Nyanza who are in front of emancipating the people of Nyanza from this level.
Thank you so much. I just want to invite my brother in this election is so the idea that away is being there was how kuna uchaguzi hapa kama mwaka ujao kama mwaka mwingine, na hakuna njia nyingine yoyote ambayo Raila anatumia kufanya rais. Tukubali kwamba rais ni and that if you run in an election, it says that if you get 50+1 votes, you're the president. And so there's a president in place. Let's agree with that fact that there will be no other election. William Ruto got 1%, and he's the president. He's going to be there for a while. Number two, I'm getting fearful because the wars that we were fighting out almost personal wars, almost personal hatred. Yani ile chuki madharau kwa rais. Ningependa kuambia kwamba Raila angekuwa rais leo, ningependa awe na heshima. So tunauliza kwamba sisi pia nyumbani tupate rais aliyopo heshima ambayo anapitia rais. Because if Raila was president today, we would want to be respected, be allowed to work. So let's allow the person who has been elected to work. Number three, this talk about we are the people. Kenya Kwanza also are the people. Yeah. Everyone has the people. Yes. So if you say you have more people than us, what about the day you also bring a people out? So the idea about the people, the people depends on where you are. The election that finished showed that Kenya Kwanza had more people than Azimio. That's the truth. And so the idea that, we can use Article 1 of the Constitution, but we are the people, there are more people on this side, and we're just being patient. Finally, I want to keep calling upon my brothers. Saroba Hotel in Kisumu was not working for 3 years. It was open 2 months ago. Why do you break the windows of that hotel? KCB has been there for the last how many years? Why do you break the windows of a bank? Your brothers are working there, these are working there. Now, Governor Nyong'o says that people should not target some buildings. He should tell people down there that they should not target all the buildings. You cannot be saying that today you want to drive, tomorrow you want to build, and you are not taking care. And I agree with my brothers here that all of us in Kenya Kwanza, we do letters to the ORPP that anybody who was injured, even the person who was killed in Maseno, must be paid by the body. Thank you so much.
Just 1 minute for Mheshimiwa Raila. Lazima aheshimu Kenya na aheshimu wa Kenya. Alikuwa anasema kwamba yeye ni mzalendo. Mzalendo gani ambaye anaruhusu mali ya Kenya kuandika na Wakenya kugadhamika kupata shida? Nchi ya Kenya imekuwa kurudi katika hali yake ya kawaida. Tumekuwa tukiona
biashara za watu zimeanza kurudi vizuri. Juzi tumeona a lot of cancellation na utalii umeanza kwenda mbaya na biashara za watu nyingi zikiharibika. Tumeona mali ya watu ikiharibika. Tunataka kumwambia hivi ya kwamba kama yeye ni mzalendo na kama yeye anasema kweli ni mzalendo, basi aheshimu Wakenya. Tunajua uchaguzi ulipita na tunajua hii fujo yote anafanya ni kwa binafsi yeye mwenyewe, ni kwa maslaha yake yeye mwenyewe, kwa sababu wakati alikuwa katika ile inaitwa handshake tuliona bidhaa za vitu zikipanda bei na hakuna siku alitoka barabarani akisema ya kwamba bidhaa zimepanda bei au tuamke kupitia Wakenya na uchumi ukiwa mbaya. Kwa hivyo tumwambie sasa hivi atulize boli, awache nchi iendeshwe vizuri, tuweze kurekebisha uchumi wa Kenya tukiongozwa na rais ambaye ni William Samoei.
Asanteni sana. Asante.